Okay, well, good morning,
People's on
everybody. We're
already.
at the
They
top of
blowing up
the
the
hour
chats.
and ready to get
Oh,
rolling here with CLA's monthly webinar. It's okay, Waleed, you're good. With our monthly webinar on how to start a laundromat. Super excited to have everybody here. Say hi in the chat. We've got Andrew from our team helping us out, saying hellos. Couple of Chicago folks here. It's good to see some locals on a chilly morning here. Milton from Honduras. Thanks for the long distance check in there. Elise from North Texas. Good group coming together. Caroline from St. Pete. Good group here. What else would you rather do than talk about laundromats from all over the world, right? While some more of you sign on here, I'll start to take care of a little bit of the housekeeping just to make sure everybody's in good shape. So you're in the right place for CLA's webinar. We've got about a 90-minute session planned, heavy on the Q&A, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. You can see that we're using the Zoom platform, and so a couple things to point out. Some of you have already found the chat. Please use that to keep in touch with each other, say hello. You'll also find that there is a Q&A box available, and that would be the best place for you to submit your questions. And the way this is going to work is that I'll be sharing some of our prepared material. I'll be asking some questions of our not so secret special guest, and I'll interrupt ourselves from time to time to tap into some of your questions. So as you populate those, we'll keep an eye on those and kind of an idea of which ones we've got already answered in some of the slides and which ones we can take a few minutes to respond to. Probably the number one question we get is, are you recording and can we get a copy? Yes and yes. We're recording right from the very jump, and we'll make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get the recording, get the slides, and kind of use that as a resource going forward. So you can take notes, and again, please ask questions, but just know that you'll have access to this along the way. So yeah, all right. Well, still got a bunch of you coming on, but I want to be sensitive to the time that we have. So I think we'll go ahead and get started here. So let me formally welcome you to CLA's How to Start a Laundromat webinar. We do this every month on a free basis to help you get to know the industry a little bit better. You might be asking yourself, what or who is CLA? And I'm going to try to answer that for you right now. So CLA is the Laundry Association. We're the trade group that's been representing the laundromat industry for 65 years. And our mission includes things like giving back to the industry, trying to protect the best interest of owner-operators, share best practices. And part of that, too, is making ourselves available to those of you that are aspiring first-time laundromat owners that are thinking about buying or building your first laundromat. And we want to be a resource for you. We want to be a way for you to get educated on the business. And so we found that doing these monthly webinars, as we have for years and years and years, is a great way to try to accomplish that. And really kind of our mission statement around this function is that we're not really here to recruit you into the business. We'd love for you to consider the business and do your homework, but really I think our job is to give you the resources and the education that you need to make a good decision about whether or not to get in the business. And then if you do decide to get in, have all the support that you need to be successful, right? So we're certainly positive on the business. We love the industry. But at the same time, we're not really here in a recruitment mode per se. And as Waleed and I will chat here in a moment, we think it's important that we're the adults in the room and that we're the authoritative resource and that we want to give you a level-headed look at the business. So we'll talk some more about the association and what we bring to the table a bit more as we go along. But I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Brian Wallace. I serve as president and CEO here at CLA, so I get the real honor of not just leading our team here, but working with our volunteer board of directors to attack all kinds of opportunities and challenges related to the industry. I'm coming up on completing my 33rd year in the business. So I've had just an unbelievable opportunity to work with, and it's not hyperbole, thousands and thousands and thousands of potential first-time laundromat owners, and hopefully paying attention to what you need and what you want to learn about, but also spending that time with, again, thousands of successful existing operators that are very willing to share what they've learned and best practices. We've got sort of this crowdsourced knowledge base activated for decades now, and hopefully you'll see some of the benefit of that as we share here. So I get to be the host, but better than being the host is to having some great guests. And over the last several months, we've been adding in various special guests that are experienced people in the business that really know what they're talking about. And Waleed, welcome. Good to have Waleed Cope here. And certainly count him among the friends of the association and an expert who's taking a real interest in not only helping to educate his peers as other owner-operators, but reaching out to many of you who are getting started to share some of that wisdom. So a formal hello, Waleed, and great to have you with us.
Brian, thanks so much. Hello, good to see you and good to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, I have you listed here as the laundry pirate and CEO of the Soapbox, and you got the laundry CEO thing going on. So you just take a few minutes to just enlighten the group a little bit more about your background and what brings you here today.
I'll keep it really short and give the Cliff Note abbreviated version. I'm second generation, been in laundry 30 plus years. We operate all three lines of service. We do self-service, wash and fold, pickup and delivery. And our three main service lines in our business are the dry cleaning, wash and fold, obviously self-service. And then we also do a niche of sneaker cleaning. We operate in New York, New Jersey, and Maryland right now.
And that, folks, is the very short version. So while he brings a lot of great experience to the table, and we're going to be tapping into that as we go along. And so now that we're underway, we've got a ton of you on the call here. Just want to again feel free to say hi in the chat, but better yet, find that question and answer box and start populating that with your questions. And I've got that on my screen, and like I said, I'll be sort of presenting and looking at your questions and bringing Waleed into the conversation as we go along. So don't be shy. Get those questions rolling because that's what you're here for. We want you to leave here today with a better understanding of the business, but perhaps even more precisely, a better idea of what you need to know and what you need to learn some more about and continue your homework from here. So all good. So let's jump right into some of the prepared content, and I'll keep an eye open for the questions that you want to add to the mix as we go along. So what is this? Who are we? What is this whole laundry business that we're talking about? So laundromat, laundromat, washateria, lavanderia, coin laundry, coin op laundry, by any other name, we're talking about really the laundromat business. We're talking about the retail, self-service, and increasingly full service industry where we're making our facilities available to the general public to do laundry. So what we're not talking about for the purpose of this conversation would be the vended laundry equipment that you're going to find in apartment buildings, condominiums, dormitories. That's kind of a multi-family laundry industry, and great business. They have their own association, MLA. They do a great job, but really talking about working directly with the public in a retail setting. And with that, we have an estimate of about 29,000 locations in the U.S. and a very conservative estimate of 5 to 6 billion in annual sales, probably closer to 8, 9, 10 billion. But it's a very fragmented business, and that's a theme that we'll get back to a couple of times along the conversation. Statistically, the average is 2,850 square feet, and I kind of bring that up to show that as you've looked around at laundromats yourselves, you'll see small stores, you'll see big stores, you'll see giant stores. And really, it's a matter of sort of scaling that size of laundromat service to the market that you're serving. And so Waleed made a way to add you to the conversation is maybe some of the dramatic size variances among what you've been up to, and maybe give people a little bit of context in terms of sizing laundromats. But I figure we'd start with the statistical average and build out from there.
Yeah. When we look at size, well, to give you context, when I grew up, I'm in New York City. When I grew up in the business with my dad, so our store was considered small to today's standards. My dad's first store was roughly like 1,800, 2,000 square feet. And then we kind of stole some space from other parts of the building and added to it over the years and ended up with this like funky L-shaped laundromat over time. But size is, it depends on where you are. Real estate is a premium in some cities. And there are going to be a lot of laundromats you see that are like what they call the shotgun bowling alley, washers on one side, dryers on the other. So I've seen anything from 1,100 square feet here in the city up to some of the larger stores that are five, or even 6,000 square feet. But the smaller ones are what I see more in the city. Now, as we expand it out to other markets, New Jersey, New York, we typically look for something between, 4,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet for our business model. But I know plenty of stores. Make no mistake, size does not mean more money. I know plenty of stores that are in the 2,000, 2,500 square foot range, even 3,000, and they are rocking and they are
Right.
making a good amount of money per week.
Yeah, and revenue per square foot, it can be an
Yeah,
important metric that a lot of folks will pay attention to. So again, I really want to kind of bring this up just so people don't get too hung up on the size of the facility, that it's really should be driven by the market demand. And as you said, as a practical matter, what's available? If there's a 3,000 square foot space available, that's in the right spot, the right parking, all the other things we'll talk more about. Well, maybe it's going to be a 3,000 square foot store because a lot of times you are dealing with existing spaces. So that's super helpful.
yeah.
And within that, I always like to point out that probably the majority of our members are leasing their space, right? They're part in a strip center, strip mall, more of a shopping complex, and they don't own the real estate. Um, Increasingly, we've got members that do control the real estate, that have been able to make the real estate part of that investment. And as a general rule, that tends to be in a little bit more of the suburban or even rural locations where it's more feasible to acquire the real estate as part of the project. So just know that most of our folks they're on a lease with a landlord, and I'll be sure to beat the topic of leases to death by the time we're done with this, because it continues to be super important. So we'll save a little bit more of that for later. In terms of who are we serving, the good news is that everyone has laundry, right? Everyone's a potential customer, but our core customer would be that of a renter, typically a lower income renter in a more densely populated area. Quite often, folks that don't either can't afford a washer or don't have easy access to a washer. But increasingly, we're seeing more and more people use our services, both on a self-service basis and some of the work that Waleed and his peers are doing on wash, dry, fold, and delivery, let alone commercial accounts. So, but if we had to pick one thing, we're looking for that renter-occupied household, and knowing that the business sort of expands from there on a ripple effect. So, I figured I'd just kind of start with a little bit of a tale of the tape. And with that, maybe I'll take a peek at a couple of these questions, Waleed, and see what some of the things that
Absolutely.
we can tackle. So, one question that Juan kicked us off with, and Juan, you always get a gold star for asking the first question. So, well done, well done. So he's asking about differences between starting with a new laundromat from scratch versus buying a business. So, build versus buy is one of our tried and true questions. I've got a full chart of pros and cons for you a little bit later in the presentation. And so, Waleed, how do you tackle that question? I'm sure you get asked that all the time. Should I build or buy?
Both. That's it. And I say both because I've done both. And you got to look at the market you're in, the situation. And when I say market, the local market, really like niche down and look at 1 mile, 3 miles, depending on the type of business and the service you want to do. I've taken over existing stores, and we've done new builds. We're in the process. We just finished a new build in July. That store is 5,000 square feet, has 56 washers, 56 dryers. The beauty of it is we get to design the store the way we want because it's a clean slate. Buying an existing business is wonderful also. You can't do as much as you want because it's not a blank slate like building, but you walk in the door, depending on the status of that store, you're walking in with a business that's running. So you have revenue coming in day one. With a new build, you have to be prepared to carry everything until you get those doors open. And whatever you budget, hear me and hear me well, double that number. Double.
Yeah, well, look, you're not alone, Waleed. New projects have a way of little creep in the budget that happens over time. Just like if you're building a house or building anything else, it
Yeah.
just these are things that naturally happen. So yeah, I'll just double down on that, Juan. I think you should really try to focus on having each opportunity, whether it's an opportunity to build or buy, and measure it on its own merits, financially and otherwise. As the shorthand that Waleed gave you is right on. You know, new is new. People like new. You get to build your baby and your vision the way you want it. And some would argue it's got a higher ceiling when you're building new because you're starting with the latest technology and equipment that's fresh, and you have the front end of a lease. The
But you don't,
downside is that it costs more. By definition, there's a little bit more risk because it's a yet to be proven location.
that's it.
But buying an existing store, ideally, do your homework, due diligence. You've got cash flow on day one. It's a more of a known entity. You can touch it, feel it, smell it. You know what you got your hands around. The downsides can be that you're typically dealing with often older equipment, the shorter end of a lease. You know, you have the opportunity or challenge sometimes of inheriting some of the existing challenges that might be part and parcel of that location. And like I said, I'll circle back for sure, Juan, with a more detailed pro and con chart that we can take a look at. Juan, you also asked about equipment in terms of brands, and I'll just get this out of the way. We're brand agnostic. We're not here to talk about brand A versus brand B versus brand C. But I will give you the advice, and we'll see if Waleed agrees with this or not. You don't have to, Waleed. It's okay for us to disagree.
No
But
problem.
what I've found over the years, again, many years, decades, and working with lots of members, and we've got a lot of successful members that are using all the brands, right? So we've got members that are successful with A, B, and C. We've had members that have had struggles with A, B, and C. What I tend to tell folks is to spend time getting to know the commercial laundry equipment distributors that serve your area. And these are the folks that are authorized to sell that particular brand in your market. And so you're going to have 4, 5, 6 brands available. There are going to be 4, 5, 6 distributors available. Go spend time with them, ask them questions, see how your list of needs matches up with what they offer, and do your level best to select the best distributor, particularly when you're getting started, and frankly, buy whatever brand they happen to carry. I think particularly when you're getting started, that distributor relationship is more important than maybe small variances in the hardware. And Waleed, I'll leave it open for you to rebut or agree or give a different answer.
Yeah, so my preference is both. And let me add a little detail to that.
Yeah,
I want the brand I want, and I want the person that I want to work with.
yeah, right,
And our industry is set up a little different because of distributors have different regions, territories, etc. And depending where your store is located, each distributor carries a certain line of equipment. So I like to have both. In the ideal world, that is the best scenario. You get the brand you want because there are certain features you might want. As Brian touched on earlier, equipment is changing now. There's more technology being involved in it, and there's little nuances. And when you really think about how you want to build your self-service portion of your business, your laundromat, and we can talk about self-service, wash and fold, pickup and delivery later. But the core of your business, if you own and you're operating a laundromat, the self-service should be running that business. And when I say running it, the revenue from your self-service. So based
right.
on how you want to present your store to your clientele, you might want certain features. You might want touch screen over push button, or you want a knob versus touch screen because of the demographics or your customer type. So that brand is important as well as the person. But in some cases, you might not get the person you want for your brand. You might meet with them, they might not be super responsive. I see some questions in the chat about how do I get people to return my calls? How do I get
Yeah.
them to follow up with me?
Yep.
So in that case, you might say, I like the brand, but I don't like the person I have to work with. So in that case, I'm going to default to what Brian said, and you go with the person and then choose the best brand that that distributor has. Because at the end of the day, you want someone, when you pick up the phone, when you send an email, when you send a text message, that's going to be super responsive to you. And let's be clear, for some of us, purchasing a store, purchasing the equipment is going to be one of the biggest investments we make, right next to the investment we make if we own a piece of property. It's not a purchase to take lightly. So you want the right support system.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And again, it's honest too. We have had challenges with responsiveness, right? And I think you should bake that into the cake, as you're trying to make those types of decisions. I think it's also worth noting that I know that you probably do that for clients and followers, Waleed. I'm often in a position where I'll help with the outreach. If someone's
Yep.
having a little bit of trouble connecting with the right person, that's one of the roles that we can play here at the association. On our website, laundryassociation.org, there's a directory of all the member companies that are serving the different territories and representing the different brands. So there are resources that you can pull from, absolutely. And one of the other examples I give, Waleed, is if I had my sort of, by declaration, my list of arbitrary, here are the 100 best laundry operators in the country. Let's just say by fiat, I created this list. As you go through that, you're not going to see a uniform or dominant brand, right? Some are going to be using this, some are going to be using that brand, some are going to be the other brand. And if you dig deeper and ask follow-up questions, what you're probably going to find is that that brand affiliation was driven by a really good distributor relationship with someone
Absolutely.
who's there on a localized
Yeah.
basis. So kudos to you, Juan, for asking the first three questions. You asked about loans. We'll get to financing a bit here as we go. Christine, a few other questions are coming up here. But let's cover a little bit more of the prepared, and then we'll circle back to some more of the questions. And so again, what I said before is we're not here to say the laundromats are the best thing in the world, the best investment. You have to do it tomorrow. But we do say, hey, it's a great business. You need to learn more about it, and we're in a position here to help you. So I thought one way to sort of emphasize that is to present you some reasons why we love the business, why you should further research the industry, and why you should be excited. And I'm going to balance that with a slide on what are some of the challenges, obstacles, potholes, pitfalls, other things that you can run into. So if that sounds fair, I'm going to go ahead and try to go through that, and I'll give Waleed whenever you want to add to or double down on some of these, let me know. But, it really begins with the nature of the service that we're offering. We're offering an essential service to the community, and that particularly post Great Recession, post pandemic, that has definitely been a more compelling reason I've seen people come at the industry. We are not immune. This is not recession proof. This is not pandemic proof. What we're trying to say is that we tend to hold up better than a lot of other industries in the face of some of those, sort of catastrophic challenges or downturns. We tend to hold up pretty well. Why? Because people need to wash laundry, rain or shine, they need to do their laundry. So that does give our members a lot of, confidence in the business, and that's what continues to draw people, perhaps like yourselves, to take a look at the industry. This is not, in my opinion, again, we'll allow for rebuttals with Waleed. This is not in my definition, a passive or absentee business. However, I think it's fair to say it's a simple business. And what do I mean by simple? Simple doesn't mean easy. What simple means is that it's pretty self-evident. Like the keys to success, the things that you need to do, are not hard to figure out. You need to be in a great location and keep it clean and have the machines running and have friendly service. But any of you that have gone around to look at local laundromats can see with your own eyes that it's not easy necessarily to execute on that. You see plenty of laundromats that fall short on one or two or all four of those items. So the fact that it's a straightforward industry definitely appeals to our members. But again, that doesn't mean that it's an easy or sit home and count the cash. Waleed, do you take a contrary opinion on any of those elements?
Brian, you're totally off the mark. This business is so passive and it's so absentee, which is why I'm in it. Like I'm able to sit here with you for 90 minutes and I don't have to worry about anything at my stores. My phone is not vibrating right now at all.
Uh, I
Yeah,
misread the room entirely, Waleed.
yeah, totally. So, I share with anyone. If you think this is a passive business, you're highly mistaken. Do not believe all the get rich quick schemes you're seeing online right now about laundromats are so passive and you can put X amount of money in and you're going to get all this money back and you only have to go there so many times a week. Let me be clear. You can be an absentee owner. And I'm sure all of us on this call have looked at listings online and you see the broker will say absentee owner goes by once a week. Absolutely. It's possible for you to have a store and it's attended or it's unattended and you go by there, whatever your schedule is. But let's be absolutely clear. The amount of money your store makes is a direct reflection of the time, effort, and energy you invest in it. Anything you want to give you a good return, you have to invest in it. I don't know of too many things that are passive that put a lot of money in anybody's pocket. And if we talk about passive, we're talking about the dictionary version of passive, not what's been passed around on the internet. So, as Brian say, I will agree. It's a simple business. It's not very complex. If we have experience in the fast food industry and some other industries, those businesses are highly complex compared to laundry.
Right.
Hold times, cook times, shelf life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Laundry, I don't have to worry about the clothes expiring after we do the wash and fold. I don't have to worry about the Board of Health coming in and checking the temperature of the clothes to make sure they're at the proper levels. It's a lot simpler, but it does involve someone to be present for it to be successful.
Yeah, I agree, and well said from a practitioner perspective and with your experience. On the other hand, okay, when I talk to our members, sort of, baking in profitability, people love this business because it can be profitable, right? No one's in it for the love of doing laundry, right? This is a means to an end, a way to build a lifestyle, a way to build a business. And so while I would reject sort of passive or absentee, I hear a lot from our members is, what I've come to call kind of a flex time business or
Yep.
these lifestyle considerations, right? So just like anything else, you need to put the time and the effort in, but you can, aside from emergencies, you can sort of dictate when you want to spend that time, and how you want to spend that time, right? So you're a night owl, you're an early bird, you've got a day job, you catch up on the weekends. These are the things that I hear from our members. And where it's manifest is it allows me to pursue my other business, or I love to drive my kids to school, or I like to coach Little League. I can do that and run a laundromat. So it's that flexibility, again, outside of a hose breaking or someone doesn't show up for their shift or other things where you do need to be there at a prescribed time. Kind of that flexibility is something I hear a lot from our members. And another thing I think that's worth noting is that each and every one of you watching, maybe take a year from now, but you could be out there operating a first class, top tier laundromat competing with the best of the best. You can do it. And you're going to need good research. You're going to need to do your homework. You need to find good business partners in terms of distributors and finance companies and other things we'll be talking about. But you can do it. This remains a highly fragmented industry. There is some consolidation from within happening. I would say it's primarily with existing operators working their way into a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 store chain would probably be the, kind of the polarity of that trend. But there's really not national chains with thousands of stores. There are a few fledgling franchises that have entered the space in the last couple of years. But again, I think the main thing I'm trying to get across here is that there's an opportunity for individual operators. We've had some members 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and yesterday that have built great stores that come right out of the box, competing and more importantly, providing great service to the members. So, Waleed, anything you want to add to why are people attracted to the business and why do our members love the business?
Well, I look at it, it's simple. As you said earlier, it's a simple business. But here's one thing that there is no special requirements needed for you to become a laundromat owner and operator. And when I say special requirements, like you don't have to go get some specialized license, go to school and something of that nature. It's a business that you can get in, and if you really focus and put your head into it, you can turn it into a very, very stable source of lucrative income for you. Um, and that's one thing I love about it.
Yeah, no, well said. And with before we get into some of the challenges and pitfalls, et cetera, let me kind of jump back into what has become a nice long list of questions. I'm going to stick in the Q&A box. I know some of you are kicking it around in the chat as well. But Christine, your question sounds like from an existing operator, best practice is to help educate your customers on the size of the machine that can be used for how much laundry. Signs on or near the machine, best to explain an 80-pound washer can handle up to 8 baskets. Well, like I said, customer education, while we need another 3 hours to talk about trying to train customers to do laundry the right way. Everything has been tried. I really think the best thing you could do in terms of the signage, a lot of the brands do have the icons that speak to the number of baskets. I call a basket 10 pounds, some call a basket 12 pounds, but it's pretty much in that range. So an 80-pounder is 8 loads, 60-pounder is 6 loads. Communicating that to customers, you can certainly use the visuals. Some will rely on attendants to try to help. But again, you'll find that people that are looking for help, sometimes people resist, like, hey, don't tell me how to do laundry. I've been doing laundry forever. And the customer service response to that is, oh, no, you have. I'm sure you're great at it. I just want to make sure you're getting the best results and getting the best value. And so this is a machine that holds X amount of loads. And often, Christine, as you know, it's really the other way. They're trying to overload a machine and try to get good luck, or oversuds a machine and try to get good luck. So no magic solution there, Christine, but just, having well-trained attendants helps, having clear signage helps. But at the end of the day, customers are customers, and they're not always going to follow directions. I have a question here about determining the purchase price. So I've got a slide in a section for you on valuation here in a few minutes, but let's jump into your question. How do you determine a purchase price of a laundromat? Okay, specific case, leased property that's not currently netting any money, only has about a third of the machines currently operating. The owners are saying they're doing an asset sale. So this is a common scenario, Waleed, where you've got a store that's, people ask me if a store that's losing money, what's it worth?
What assets?
What
Like,
assets, right?
that,
So
I
you've
mean, that's
got,
my response to the owner.
yeah,
If the machines are 10, 15, I've even seen 20-year-old machines in the store, my response is what assets?
right.
Because I'm going to rip all those machines out and retool the store. And that's just my preference because I don't want a store that has machines of that age. I'm not saying it's anything wrong with it. You could do it. It's not the look, feel, and environment we want to present to our clients. Could you take over a store that has 15-year-old machines and, do some facelifts on them and done it? Yeah, I've done it in the past. But I look at the revenue return I get from that versus when I put in a new store and bring everything together and deliver it to our customer the way we like to do it, I see a higher return on it. So the owner says, I'm selling you the assets. And if they're firm on it, I would go bring in a distributor or someone who sells used equipment and give an honest valuation of those machines and say, hey, these machines are worth, $15,000, $20,000. So if we're talking about an asset sale, you're asking for a couple 100,000 for this business, but these machines are only worth 15 to 20,000. So I guess I just got the best price here because it's an asset sale. Here's a check for 20,000. Let's close this bad boy next week. Otherwise, they're selling you on potential. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna be clear. I don't buy on potential because I have to do the work to get the potential out of a business. So why would I pay somebody for
Yeah.
the potential when I got to do the work to get it out of the
The
business?
seller had the opportunity to realize that potential. They didn't.
Exactly.
It's quite often the case. So the only little wiggle room I put in there is, part of your question is leased property. So there are cases, let's say that they do have a good lease, junky machines, poorly performing store, but there's 10 years, 15 years, 18 years left on a well-priced lease, then that might be a little bit of a
Yep.
factor that might bring additional value. But again, if they're talking about an asset sale with used old equipment, that seller's gonna be pretty disappointed in that valuation.
Yeah.
Okay. Juan broached the topic of coin cards, apps, etc. So I'll kind of start with the tail of the tape, and then Waleed can offer his opinion about, we'll call it, payment methods. Statistically, based on our annual survey, one of the values you get for being a member is our benchmarking survey every year. The majority of stores now are on some kind of hybrid basis, meaning they're taking quarters, but also some combination of credit card, debit card, loyalty or laundry card, and mobile payments. The number of stores that accept quarters as the only form of payment continues to plummet. I think this year's survey somewhere in the low 30% range.
Wow.
You've got on the other end of the scale, you would have those that we would consider coin-less, meaning they're just taking cards. You could use cash to add value to the card, credit to add value to the card. That would be somewhere in that 15% of stores. So everything in the middle there is, accepting multiple forms of payment. So I guess an easy way to answer that, Waleed, is your most recent store. Again, brands aside, but in terms of what payment options are you offering those folks in your newest store?
So we do have card, but let me caveat that answer.
Okay.
When we were at Excellence in Laundry last year, that question came up on the panel, and it was like coins or cards for someone asked for their store. And you'll see a lot of discussion on the forums or in these groups online, and you have hardcore advocates for card and you have hardcore advocates for coin, and even dollar coin and quarters, all kind of things.
Right.
I would urge everyone to take a step back and think about what type of business do you want to own and build. Now, we have cards for a reason, because we have multiple stores in multiple locations. And let me explain this to you very clearly. I don't know any other way to say this to you. When you drop a 5-gallon bucket full of quarters on your foot or in the store when the laundromat is busy, life gets very interesting for you. And I've been through that a couple of times in my life. But I say that in jokingly, but think about it. I'm dumping these quarters 2 times a week. It could be 3 times a week, depending on how busy your store is. Could be 1 time a week if your store is not very busy. How are you going to replicate that across multiple stores if your goal is to have 10 stores, right? And if you got 10 stores, let's think about it. How close are they really going to be to each other? Because you're going to end up cannibalizing yourself to a certain extent. So you're going to need some proximity between your stores. So now your drive time increases going from store to store to store. Or you say, Wally, you know what? I got a team. I'll have them dump the quarters. Great. Have your team do it. My question will be, how do you hold them accountable, right? When you put temptation in front of people, the devil inside gets tempted. So I have someone go into these stores and dump in the quarters. I don't know how many quarters they actually took out that washer. I can estimate, and they put it in the coin machine, etc. But if I have a card machine, I know exactly how many bills went in, how many cards were dispensed, and if I have them allocated to taking the cash out of my value add centers and deposit in the bank, I can look and say that machine had X dollars in it. And when they went to the bank, I can look online, or when they drop off the deposit slips at the main office, that those numbers reconcile.
Yeah, well said. And these are the things that that we've got to keep in mind when payments. And again, I give a similar advice in terms of what kind of operator do you want to be, right? And quarters are great, but you're going to be there more, right? And quarters are great, but can you get away for weekends? Can you trust someone with that big old ring of keys?
Or that coin machine jams on you on the weekend when you're, at your favorite event.
That's right. That's right. Well, there's a Murphy's Law, right? The changer doesn't go down Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. It goes down Friday night when you're out with friends or you're at a family event. That's just the nature of the business.
And you think about it too. Let's talk about safety. for a second, which I don't hear talked about a lot in our conversations. And I'll give a great example. There was one point where I was working remotely. I was working 1 week in Canada and then 1 week in New York for a whole year. And that week I'm in Canada, my wife has to go to the store, dump the machines, fill the coin machine, and then take the cash out and go to the bank. You talk about paranoid, Brian. I'm watching the, when she would literally text me and call me like, all right, I'm going to the store to dump. I'm watching the cameras the whole time. I have friends on standby to say, if something goes wrong and I call you or I text you, I need you to go to the store immediately on this day and this time. That time period, now I'm not focused on the work that I'm doing out of town because the safety factor comes into play. Now I can eliminate that to a certain degree if I have a card system or some type of electronic payment. Let me not say I'm advocating cards 100% because there's a bunch of electronic payment they can do at the machine. They can tap with their phone. They can use their credit or debit at the machine. But using an electronic payment form, I've eliminated one piece of the currency challenge in my store. Now I just have to figure out how do I dispose of the cash that's sitting in the store inside those machines, which is an easier problem for me than dumping those quarters and then opening up the coin machine and getting those quarters in. It's less steps, less complexity.
Yeah, well said, well stated. And again, these are the things, these are the lifestyle considerations,
Yeah.
right? That you have to think through. What's your week to week going to look like on that basis? So,
And the client. Let's think about the clients too, Brian. Like, what are the client's preferences? Part of our decision is for us because of the business we're building, but the other part is for our clients. Like, we talk to our clients and ask them, like, what do you prefer? We have people who bring us quarters and say, can you take these quarters and then you can give me bills for us to put on our laundry card, which is what we do because we want them to be comfortable. And they're so happy that they don't have to carry some of these machines these days, Brian. You have a 90-pound machine, a 100-pound machine, a 130-pound machine. Those things are almost $20, depending what market you're in. Imagine putting in $20 worth of quarters. Well, I'm sure somebody will say, well, we could use dollar coins, but still, I got to carry these coins around. And
yeah.
as an owner, if you don't know, your bank will charge you for quarters. And that was a reality check for me when I went to the bank one day. It was like, I need $500 worth of quarters. And they dropped the box on the counter. And then they charged me 500 plus what the fee was. And then I had to carry this heavy box of quarters out to my car and throw it in the trunk. So think about those things.
Yeah, pros and cons for sure. And, but I'm just showing, that's why I wanted to start with the tail of the tape, because that's just so statistically where things are heading, and machine size and multi-store operation are definitely drivers behind people looking at other forms of payment beyond quarters. So all right, hey, let's get back to some of the content. Your questions are stacking up. I am reading them and I will get to them, but let's talk about some of those challenges because it kind of fits what we were just talking about. So again, a lot of reasons that people love the business, and what doesn't get talked about as much as some of the challenges, all of which can be overcome, and particularly with education and finding the right partners in the business. So scarcity is a big challenge I see out there today. Everyone's bird dogging locations for new builds. The newbies are looking. Waleed's looking. He won't admit it. I know he's looking in multiple markets. I guarantee it. The franchisors are looking for locations. Everybody's trying to find a location. Existing stores, everyone, I see a lot of you here that are giving us anecdotes about you're looking for stores and trying to contact owners. So, I just think you need to, I want to say, manage your expectations. You just understand that we're in a place right now where either good locations to build new or stores to buy may be scarce based on the market that you're in. And that's what I'm hearing every day. So you may get lucky, find a great location, or maybe a store that never gets to a listing, almost like a private sale. That's great. Or maybe you have the real estate. You've got a good location and you're ready to put dollars to work in your own location. So scarcity can be one of those challenges that you want to give some thought to. Waleed kind of addressed this here. Not everyone's cut out to work with the general public. Part of being an entrepreneur is knowing yourself and knowing what you're comfortable with, not just from a safety standpoint, which is important, but also just in kind of what's the day-to-day like. And my very favorite piece of advice I've given for 30 years, and I didn't make it up myself, I learned from our members, is before you get into this business, put 2 loads of laundry in your trunk and go do laundry every place you can. Go to laundromat after laundromat after laundromat, get a feel for it, get a feel for the environment. If it's in the market that you're considering, you can start building a bit of a competitive analysis, a little dossier on the other locations. But you're going to walk away from, let's just pick a number. If you go do laundry in 20 laundromats, you're going to walk away from that experience with a much better sense of what the day-to-day is like, what you don't like, what you would do differently in your own store. And if you are looking to compete in that market, you're going to walk away with a lot of information about what's there. So I know it sounds silly, but I really think, Waleed, you got to go do laundry if you really want to understand the business.
No, well, first of all, Brian, it's not silly, and I'll share this with you and everyone. And I'm sure you and I probably talked about it before. When we opened our latest location in July, there are about 9 laundromats in the immediate area and about 6 on the same strip that we're on.
Yep.
I visited every one of them. I did laundry in every one of them. I counted how many ceiling tiles had water stains on it in the stores. I looked at how many machines were out of order. And more importantly, I looked at when I walked in the store, I looked at how did I feel? What was
Right.
the impression that the store gave me? What was the ambiance of the store saying to me when I walked in? There are some stores I walked in to go do laundry, to understand the customer base in the market and what was going on. And the feeling I got and the overall look of the store turned me off so much. I took $10 worth of the quarters I was about to use to do my laundry. I handed to a young lady that was in there. I was like, your laundry's on me today. And I turned around, got my car and drove off. Because
Yeah.
what was there showed me that I don't need to spend time there and I'm going to move on. And if a client wants to spend time there, they're probably not the client for me. And I keep clothes in my car. I keep a set of towels in my car all the time in the trunk. And I see a laundromat, I pull over, I go inside and I sit in there and do laundry anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah. That doesn't sound very passive to me,
Uh,
but it works.
Works for me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, great. Thank you for adding that. And yeah, I guess the other thing I want to make sure we get to, and I can see this is in a bunch of the questions that again I'm tracking, and I'm going to try to kind of gang up these questions. We're about halfway through our time. As I've talked with folks again over the years, the number one issue that I've come across is for first timers is pulling together that first down payment, pulling together the financial wherewithal to do the first project. So what I thought would be helpful, I got a couple of slides that kind of speak to this, is to try to give you some sense of what that means. So if I tell you that the financial wherewithal is the biggest challenge, I need to kind of put that in a little bit of a context. So when you're looking at laundromats for sale, you've seen it in listings locally or talking to brokers or stores that are a couple 100,000. Maybe it's that store that was, an asset sale that was breaking even and had old machines in it. But you see stores for sale for a couple $1,000,000. And generally speaking, if you're going to try to access the main financing options in the business, which I will list for you in a moment, you're going to need probably 30 to 40% of that in cash, and obviously the qualification to borrow the balance. If you're going to do a new store, and again, I'll put some caveats and some framing around this. If you're looking at an existing building, an existing space, and you need to convert it to a laundromat, vanilla box, or maybe it's being used for a different purpose right now. So we're not talking about buying the real estate, but we were talking about the build out, leasehold improvements, any utility upgrades, the equipment itself and the installation thereof. I ask this question all week, every week. I ask Waleed, I ask everyone I talk to, kind of how does that break down on a per square foot? And taking an average across the country, I say $300 to $400 a square foot is a good starting point. We see projects that exceed that, certainly, and you may be in an area where the projects would be less than that. So again, if you apply that to the 2,850 square feet we started with, based on our survey, yes, most new store builds, excluding real estate, are going to be, in excess of $1 million project. And so, you can say, oh, Brian, I can do it for 250, or Brian, the last 3 I've done have all been over 500 a foot. I believe you. But if I had to try to take a starting point for all these folks that are brand new to try to give them some kind of scale and scope, And again, anything short of a real quote on a real project is really just a guess, particularly when it comes to things like utilities and some things that can come back to bite you in terms of unexpected costs. So, I don't know, Waleed, am I off base? Just ask people to start at $300 or $400 a foot for that type of build out.
I believe it's a fair assumption. I mean, we've got projects going on between high 200s to 350, give or take.
Okay.
And it all depends too, like what type of finishings you're going to put in the store. So the cost to cost, equipment that you're going to put in the store, the brand you go with, whether you're going to go with a higher G-force machine versus a lower G-force machine, hard mount versus soft mount, those are going to vary your cost, but we're seeing numbers in that range, give or take.
Okay. Yeah, and again, it's really just to give you some sense of scope because I see some
Mhm.
things out there. Well, free laundromat or $100,000 are in the business. That's just typically not
Well,
what
okay.
we come across,
You
right?
you
So,
opened the door there, Brian. So now I'm gonna have to just stick my
oh,
foot in it. You said
go
free
ahead.
laundry mats. So let's be clear. You could get a store, which could be classified as a free laundromat, if you are approached by the landlord or you approach the landlord and you take it over. But there are caveats to that. What is the condition of the store? What are the conditions of the machines? Is the store closed? Is it open? And, I fall into that category for one of our locations. And the property manager reached out to our broker and said, hey, I got this laundromat. They're not renewing their lease. I don't know what I'm going to do with this location. Has the infrastructure. So we took over this location. That location, everything was moved out of it when we took it over. So all we have is the infrastructure. Is it really a free laundromat? Because now I have to buy machines to put in there. I have to do the renovations. The language should be you didn't have to buy the business. I was able to take over the space with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
And
free
not all
thing, we got to be
infrastructure is
careful.
created equal, folks, too. That's the other thing that I like to try to point out is that existing infrastructure can be a huge benefit and can reduce the overall project cost. But it's not a guarantee because it
Right.
depends on what equipment was in there, what condition that infrastructure is in. And sometimes it is, hey, good to go, you're all set. But sometimes it's, well, it's another 50,000, another 75,000, another
Right.
100,000. So you really need to have someone who knows what they're doing, look at that infrastructure and give you a sense of, is it ready to roll based on what you're looking to do in that location? But yes, sometimes you can access that space and not have to pay someone for the business, but the
Hmm.
clock's now it's on your dime, right? And
Right.
that re-equipping could be a $500,000 or more. So
And the other piece you touched on and kind of alluded to, Brian, the infrastructure is one piece of it, but in our case, we can't use the infrastructure at all. So the only value that infrastructure serves for us is we don't have to pay tap fees. And if you're
right,
not
impact
familiar with
fees.
tap fees and you're looking to get into laundromat business, you need to look this up in any area considering to put a new build or an existing laundromat. Because depending on the jurisdiction, you're going to pay a connection fee for every one of those washers. In this case, it's an existing laundromat. We're grandfathered in, but we have to do the research to say we're grandfathered into how many machines. I don't know what that paperwork could say that's filed in one of these local agencies. It might say 30 machines, but this guy had 60 machines in the store. I put in 60 machines and then they show up and they're going to assess me for another 30 machines. Or he could have had on records 50 machines and I only plan to put in 40. I'm still good and I've got 10 to spare. So be very cognizant of that.
Yeah, no, well said. And so what I'm going to do is I look at the questions. I'm going to attempt a little bit of a speed round on some of these questions,
Awesome.
and then we'll kind of get back into some more of the prepared content, which I know will cover some of those same topics. I'll pause just to briefly say that most everything that you're asking about, we've got resources here at the association. We've got white papers, we've got surveys, we've got magazine articles through planetlaundry.com. In a lot of cases, I always like to point out that every new member gets a direct link to my calendar for a consultation, right? So some of you are asking about, demographics and other things. We work with members every single day, lease questions, demographic questions, offer questions, evaluation questions. So we're here as a resource for our members. And so just bear that in mind while I do a little bit of a speed round, and then we'll cover some more ground here based on what you're asking. So Miss Williams is asking about if I want to purchase a laundromat from another owner, what are my first steps for getting myself set up for ownership if I don't have capital, if I don't have the assets? And I just think the hard truth is that it's just very difficult to do this if you don't have a good starting point of cash assets to bring to the table. Do people get creative on their first attempt of the business? Sure. Partners, friends and family,
Hmm.
multiple, I have an SBA loan, but I also have an equipment loan in part. So people are accustomed to sort of cobbling together, especially that first project. So don't lose heart, but also understand that you really do need some dollars to work with in order to make it happen. Another question here is, I found a couple of laundromats for sale. However, I can't get the business sales reps to apply to my inquiry. Current owners seem very reluctant to speak about the business. Seems like a big secret. How do you break through? Well, look, put yourself in the position of a existing operator who's running a good business. They're probably not thinking about selling. They probably have lots of inquiries that come their way. People walk in, they get letters, they get calls. And it's just sort of a mishmash. Sometimes you hit them on the right day. Sometimes they'll, if you're being serious and professional, maybe they'll put your card aside for some day in the future where they are looking to sell. But again, a lot of business owners, aren't necessarily looking to make themselves easy to find when it comes to that. So when it comes to that part of finding an existing business to purchase and breaking through, persistence, professional persistence goes a long way because again, you're not always looking for someone who is ready to sell or anxious to sell. And so you do have to get a little creative in terms of making those contacts. We also on our YouTube channel at Laundry Association, I've got a video just on how to do that breakthrough, how to find the owner, how to try to make that progress. We've got a great list of FAQ videos. Logan, have you ever seen at least a 250,000 net operating income on any one laundromat with only self-service machines? Yes, it is possible. Is it every
Yep.
store? No, but it's definitely out there. Is that guy anxious to sell? Is she anxious to
Nope.
sell that store? No. Okay, because he's got a good thing going.
Nope.
Uh,
Unless you offer me some crazy multiple, I'm sure the owner would then consider it.
Yeah. Well, again, money talks, and that could help be a part of that breakthrough
Yeah.
basis. Uh, so your second part of your question, this is Logan's question. To fill the gaps of inactivity rather than have a wash and fold business that requires employees and trucks, couldn't you just implement dynamic pricing or have your machines drop down in price between whatever hours? So really, Waleed, what he's asking about is time of day pricing, day of week
Yep.
pricing, which again, I think can be a helpful tool, but I wouldn't bet the business on it. What's your opinion?
Yeah. So, and I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble for this one,
Go
but
for it.
I'm not a huge fan of promotions in our industry.
Hmm.
And our store has been fortunate. One of our stores has been fortunate enough to service high-end retailers here in New York. And when we first started doing pickup and delivery there, and I walked in their stores, first, they wouldn't let us come through the front door. All deliveries and pickups came through the rear of the building because their goal was they never want you to interfere with their client's experience. The
Hmm.
second thing I noticed in their store, there were no price tags. So I'm not saying don't have prices displayed in your laundromat. And depending where you are, it's the law. You have to have prices.
Right.
But there was a lot to learn from that because they were focusing on the experience, the quality, and they didn't do sales. They didn't do these promotions. So I believe there's some piece in our business where that plays a role depending on your market, your clientele. But what I would probably encourage someone to do that's thinking about this time of day pricing and things of that nature to bring in additional revenue. And most of the time, when I see time of day pricing, the time of day pricing is going down because they're
Right.
using that as a draw to bring more people in. Where I would be looking at how could you institute modifiers and don't nickel and dime like, oh, I'm going to charge this for hot water, even though some people do it. It's not that's your thing. Thumbs up to you. But I would look at other modifiers that would enhance the client's experience, like a deep wash or, a sanitized cycle, things that the client would want and it also benefits them. Those could be
Yeah.
really interesting, and we've did a short experiment with it, and we ended up instituting that in our newest store, and we saw increase in revenue with not a decrease, but not increasing the wear and tear of the machine. So that one client hits two or three options, we're capturing additional revenue, and they're still using their machine for, around the average time, maybe a little more, a little less. Like if you have a quick wash, some people charge more for a quick wash, some people charge less for it. But I believe the options are looking at these add-ons, these modifiers.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with it. My sense of our member experience is they've had the best luck with that sort of upcharge for you call it super wash, extended
Hmm.
wash, heavy soil, whatever
Yep.
that is called in that particular brand or your own marketing. Because people will say, "Hey, this is a loaded, really dirty work jeans. I know it's going to need an extra wash, extra rinse," and people are often willing to pay up for that. Okay, well, let's jump in. I'm looking at these next several, and I think I've got them covered in some of these slides here. A bunch of questions on valuation. Again, this requires a 3-hour class. We've got a great white paper. We've got great videos. I will work one-on-one with our members on valuation. And with that preamble, here's the only way I can boil it down to one slide. Typically at a value of the net operating income that came up earlier. Historically, most laundromats sell between 3 to 5 times the net. Is that what they're worth? Maybe. Is that what they sell for? Yeah, most have sold in that range. Valuations are trending higher in today's market because it is a supply and demand type issue right now, particularly for stores that are in good shape when it comes to the three main factors that impact valuations. That was one of the questions that came up in the chat. Um, there are a lot of factors to take into consideration, but net income is right there, not just because they're valued based on the net, but higher volume stores, higher net stores tend to command higher valuations because everyone's looking for those higher performing stores. Age and condition of the equipment and terms and duration of the lease. Very, very, very important factors when it comes to determining where in that range of multipliers does it make sense. Again, from the seller's perspective and then the buyer's perspective as a result of that. So case in point, the example that we were given earlier, let's just say it was a low net or no net store. The equipment was old, but I did say, well, hey, if the lease is in good shape, there may be something there worth paying for. So you can't pick up and move a laundromat, right? At least that's an expert level operation. So when you think about the importance of the lease, it really comes into sharp focus. And so a shorthand for this is the longer the lease, the newer the equipment, the more the store is worth. The shorter the lease, the older the equipment, the less the store is worth, if anything, right? So those are really the main factors that go into really arriving at a valuation that both sides can agree on. Uh, Caveat, due diligence on a cash business is not like due diligence on other businesses, right? And so that has to be taken into consideration. I hear from a lot of you, well, the seller has no records. Okay, well, is that making the store more valuable in your mind or less valuable in your mind? Are you willing to take their word for it? They got no books, 2 sets of books, a wink and a nod. These are all things that you need to take into consideration in terms of what you're willing to spend. So who achieves the high valuation and who earns the high valuation? Lots of time left on the lease, fairly recent equipment retool, and transparency in terms of the records and completeness of records that would make an educated buyer happy. Um, and again, the competitive analysis and the kind of the comps, the market rate for laundromats in your market will also be an influence. So again, knowing that we could talk for 2 hours on this, Waleed, is that a fair assessment of just the kind of the ABCs of laundromat valuations?
Yeah, I would agree at those at the high level. Those are the basic points someone should definitely have in their toolkit when they're out there looking at a laundromat to decide.
Okay, good. Again, we've got great resources on this to dive deeper, but that's the shorthand. And finance options. Okay, so this came up a lot in the chat and in the Q&A box. I said it a little bit earlier. Uh, some first-time laundromat owners have the capital. They've been effective in other businesses. They have a strong balance sheet. They're ready to go. More often than not, it is this latter option that I talked about earlier, where you need to sort of cobble together. So, just kind of giving you the lay of the land in terms of
Mhm.
just generally speaking, how do these projects get financed? Of course, you got conventional lenders or conventional lenders that are working with the SBA to guarantee the loan from their perspective. Absolutely, that happens every day. The SBA generally likes the laundromat business. They've done a lot of those loan guarantees. Is that an easy process? Is that a process that's available to everybody? Does everybody have a local bank that's anxious to do small business loans? No. So, but it is out there as an option. I would say the majority of projects that I see come across my desk are working with the captive lenders that serve our industry. In other words, laundromat specific financing, quite often owned or directed from an equipment manufacturer to help facilitate the purchase of their equipment, and also through some of the independent captive finance companies that specialize in laundries. So because they know the business and they're comfortable with doing the evaluations, they're more likely in a position to help facilitate that loan, or they have a direct interest. You're buying their equipment, and so they're in a position to look at that as a source of collateral, and in a situation where, God forbid, the loan didn't work. Worst case scenario for them is they get to take back equipment that's theirs that they have got the ability to remarket and try to recoup any loss that they're seeing. Online, you see a ton of attention afforded to seller financing. I don't know about you, Waleed. I do not see a whole lot of seller financing out there. And when I do, it's often in the context of there are no records, the store's in distress. They have to offer seller financing in order to make a deal happen. But maybe I'm being too harsh. Anything you would add on the seller financing?
Yes, I was looking at my notes that I was scribbling down. Uh, and the seller financing is it's interesting. Can it happen? Yes, like it's possible. Um, I would urge everyone to keep in mind we're in the seller's market right now. So the seller has the advantage. For the seller to offer you financing, the points Brian brought up are great. I agree with those. There's something wrong. There's some, as they would say, hair on the deal where the seller has to put some skin in the game to make it work. But the fact that we're in a seller's market, you're going to get beat out by someone who's willing to come in either with cash or financing or something that the owner can get paid out and just walk away from it. When the market shift, then the buyer has a little more power here to say, well, can you hold some paper? Can you do this? Um, I don't see those happening a lot. And I'm looking at stores and whether it's a new build or it's an existing store. And I ask just to get a temperature on what sellers' outlook is on the market and the feedback from them. Whether I want them to do seller finance or not, I still ask just
Right.
so I can have some kind of
Well, it could
barometer.
reveal some information
Yeah.
about their position, right?
Yeah, and just so I can
Regardless of what
see
their
like
answer is.
over time, like we looked at 20 or 30 deals, and out of those 20 or 30, 20 of them said no, they wouldn't do seller financing. Where when the market shifts, out of those 30 I see now, 20 of them are willing to do seller financing. And the other thing is too, Brian, you mentioned is the condition of the store, the machines. And we see this online about you could get these laundromats or other businesses using the seller financing. I would urge you to take a moment and really look at the claims that they're putting and the videos that they show from these laundromats that were acquired through seller financing. They're not in the best of shape most of the time. They're just not. And then how much revenue are they really generating? So when you go in, you might not have to put up money to purchase it, but now how do you come in on the back end and brighten up the store, to refresh it, to retool it, etc. There is capital that's going to be needed. This is a capital intensive business to get started in.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of that. Brian talked about it earlier with the 30 to 40% down.
Yeah, capital intensive, but again, high rewards, right? And that's why
Oh,
you're doing it.
absolutely.
That's why our members are doing it. And I think another thing I'll add on the positive note here is that we're very fortunate that we do have sort of this internal ecosystem for financing in our industry that helps facilitate this growth, helps facilitate these projects to make them happen. And again, when I talk to our successful members, you better believe it, they've got a great relationship with a finance company. That's
Yeah.
a big part of their success and everybody in a win-win scenario.
Yeah, and to
So
clarify for some of the viewers, when we say distributor, we're referring to a company, a person who is selling the equipment,
yes.
washers, dryers, vending machines, etc. You cannot buy the machines directly from the manufacturer. You have to go through a distributor.
Right. And one of the questions to ask when you're vetting local distributors is, how can you help facilitate the financing for me? And they better have a good
Absolutely.
answer, right?
Yeah.
Again, insensitive to time here, I'm going to share a few more things, and then I'm going to spend the last portion really jamming through a bunch of questions that we haven't
Right.
touched on quite yet. Couple things I wanted to share out on this screen is really just to emphasize the fact that there is benchmarking data available on the industry. We do it through the association, and this doesn't mean this is what you're going to see, but I'm just giving you the stats. I would say that statistically speaking, water, sewer, gas, and electric divided by your sales gives you an expense ratio. This is an important consideration. The average these days is at 20%. I think most of our members are targeting closer to 15%, especially with the new equipment in play. Um, those of you that are looking at existing stores that are run down, do this quick math and don't be surprised you see 30%, 35%, 38%. And because that is a reflection, a symptom of a store that's having problems and probably just needs to be retooled. And that needs to be baked into the mix. Rent, maybe a little bit more of a thing of preference, but the statistical average right around 24% of gross. I know our members are looking to get it. Obviously, the lower the better
Absolutely.
for your margin, but 20% I think would be a target, and maybe people can make the math work up to 25%. Payroll, again, you've got unattended, partially attended, and fully attended. So this really would reflect on a fully attended basis, about 22% of gross sales, but I think most would be targeting 15 to 20. Again, all these lower is better for your bottom line, but I wanted to give you some sense, in particular, not just for your pro formas and looking at a store project going forward, but again, if you are looking at an existing store, kind of see how these things measure up on an existing store. And if you've got a big outlier, either way too low or way too high, that's something that probably requires a little bit further investigation. Okay, profitability insights. Again, taken right from our survey. This doesn't mean that every store does this, but it does tie back to that 2,850 square feet. Okay, because we're cross-tabbing on the same thing. So gross sales in the 330 range and net profitability around 25%. Again, does every store do this? No. Do stores perform higher? Yes. Do stores perform lower? Absolutely, yes. But again, try to tie this back to the square footage. And again, when you put your hands on our benchmarking survey, you can access all the crosstabs and try to get a little bit further insight. When we look at this, and again, this is trailing by a year or so because we asked, in other words, we're fielding a survey right now asking about 2024. 2020 is an example of recession, or in this case, pandemic resistant. I think just about every every business on the planet would love to have said, "Yeah, we're down 7% during the pandemic." And when I go further back to the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, I coined the phrase "flat is the new up." Right? If you were holding your own during the Great Recession, you were outperforming just about everything on the planet. So we are seeing that. And if I showed you back further, this 5, 6, 7% is a pretty common look at store growth on a year-over-year basis. Again, based on the averages. Buy or build, I think it was Juan that asked at the very top for a buy versus build look. I think we touched on most of these. So just know, again, if you're asking, we are recording this. We are going to share this recording and the contents so you can take a closer look at this buy or build chart. If we didn't beat leases to death enough, we'll take one more run at it. The lease has got to be right, folks. You can't make this business work if you don't have the right lease. And that's not just duration, but also the fine print. And again, yes, you need to use an attorney. Yes, you need to know somebody, use somebody who knows the business. Yes, we have a white paper on leases. Yes, I look at member leases. We're not giving you a legal evaluation, but I will look at kind of the broad points related to your lease. But think about the fact that there's cash flow of this business, right? You can't pick up and move it. So it's protected by a lease for a finite period of time, right? And so you're looking at the listings locally and you do some homework. You ask the broker, well, there's 2 years left, but I think we can get with the landlord, or there's 6 years left, or there's 8 years left. Um, you know, I look at 10 years as a minimum. Maybe that's being too optimistic, but if we asked again, and I'll ask Waleed here in a moment, most of our members will tell you they're looking for 10 years plus 2 5-year options, 10 years plus 2 or 3 5-year options to get you to a total of 20 or 25 years. Is that a fair ask, Waleed, in terms of when you're out there talking to landlords and making your ask, or maybe you're asking for more than that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll just tell you what we're doing. We have anywhere from 20 to 30-year leases. We
Yeah,
push for the max. Um, and it's important because we need a return on investment. And if you think about the size of your store, you're going to spend anywhere from, depending on the size of the store, I'm just throwing this number out there, you can spend anywhere from $400,000 just in equipment up to $1 million in equipment. And you need an ROI on that, and you need time.
yeah, no doubt. So get some help when it comes to leases. We talk about leases with our members every single day. Existing operators, if we had all existing operators, one of the things we talk about is one of the things you can do to make your store more valuable today is add more time to the lease, right?
That's it.
So if you're looking at that same comment from a potential buyer or investor standpoint, it says the same thing to you. In other words, the lease really enables the business to operate into the future, and it really is important to understand that. So, so I'll leave this on screen for more resources, but I'm going to go ahead and get back into some of the Q&A in the chat here because we do have a little bit of time left that we can be working with, and I'm going the wrong way on my slides. Okay. All right, let's get into let me open my chat and let me open the Q&A again. So I'm just going to kind of scan through here, look for topics we haven't tackled yet. Question here about finding good distributors. We have a directory at laundryassociation.org. You can look by state and find all the member distributors that serve your area. And as we discussed earlier, vetting them, having those conversations, coming to them with your list of the things that are important to you, measuring them based on responsiveness and their help. And I think, speaking of an existing operator, I saw John Fry in the chat saying
Yep.
your experience pre-sale is probably going to speak a lot about your experience post-sale. So I think that is good advice. Douglas asking about typical net profit margin. I just shared that data. Andrew shared a question from Jessica. What type of inventory, what inventory of products you need to have on hand? And I guess, Waleed, they're primarily talking about soap, detergent, bleach type sale, and then maybe soda, snacks. What is your approach to having an inventory of products on hand?
Yeah, we've done it all. We've had one store that had over 90 items. We had 90
Okay.
SKUs in this one store. And then we have another store that probably has like 30. So typically it's what Brian said, laundry detergent, bleaches, softeners, dryer sheets,
Laundry bags.
laundry bags, plastic, woven. And then if you're going to do snacks, you got all kind of chips, candy, drinks, etc. And then you can look at two models, probably a third model. But are you going to have it behind the counter, somewhere where the attendant has to do the transaction, or is it all just in the vending machine and it's all self-serve?
Yeah. Yeah, and Matt's question, what other amenities do you offer, coffee, vending machines, et cetera? I'd say most people, and most of my advice, Waleed, is, try to stick close to the core business, things that are laundry related and things that are related to their experience of spending time in the store.
Yep.
One thing we didn't really touch on that speaks to many of the topics is that we're asking folks to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours every single week with us. It better be comfortable. It better be friendly. It better be a welcoming environment. They need to be able to access the other products that they're looking for. And so, that customer experience is something that's often overlooked, and we need to make sure we're paying attention to.
Yeah.
Anonymous question. Do you think the market's oversaturated? Um, I guess it depends on how you want to define oversaturated. Here's how I tee it up, Waleed, when I go out and speak every week somewhere in the country. I ask people, what percentage of your competitors would you grade at a B plus or better? What
Ooh,
percentage of your competitors would you grade at a B plus or better? And most of the answers that I get from the audience, again, across the country, out there all the time, somewhere in that 20 to 30% range. Once in a while, someone will say 50% of my competitors are B plus or better. I never hear 60 or 70 or 80 or 90. And so saturated in terms of head count, maybe in terms of number of stores, while you talked about 9 stores in your market.
yep.
But the quality, I think the rubber hits the road with the qualitative analysis, like who's really taking good care of customers. And I think in most markets, there's opportunity to take better care of customers. Your thoughts?
So we're in a couple different markets. The one you mentioned is in Maryland, where we have 9 competitors right there. Listen, in New York City, one of our other markets, there are laundromats across the street from each other.
Right,
So
right,
I'm in the Bronx right now. There's right down the street from us. There's one laundromat directly across the street behind us. At the next corner, there's another laundromat, and across the street from that laundromat is another. There are 3 laundromats within a 1.5 block radius. It's Someone would say that is saturated, but one of them is large with new machines, one is small with new machines, and one looks like it hasn't been updated in about 30, 35 years. And people go to each one of those laundromats, which is very
right,
interesting.
right.
So, is the market saturated when you say the number of stores in certain areas? Yeah. But is it saturated for capacity wise is a whole nother conversation we can have. Because if we looked at these stores, how much capacity are they doing? And what is the potential capacity of the market? I'm sure a lot of you have been looking at this data that's online from these third party companies that says, laundry and dry cleaning is like, I don't know, Brian, what is it, like $15 billion now with the two combined or something like that? And they say
Mhm.
laundry is like 5 to 6 billion. Truth be told, I told Brian last time we were together, I was like, I don't even believe that number because we haven't quantified the untapped market.
Right,
There are a
right.
ton of people who don't know the services that we offer. We only all talk about self-serve. So there's wash and fold, there's pickup and delivery. There's a whole segment of people who don't know what we do and how we do it.
Mhm. No, well said. Well said. I'll continue the lightning round here. Lisa, typical hours of operation, statistically around 16 hours a day,
Yep.
16, 18 hours a day is pretty typical. Only about 10% of the market is at 24 hours. John makes a comment, private equity money comes to mind. We've had a lot of interest of late from private equity. Have we seen a lot of big projects happen? Not necessarily,
Yeah.
but
And I would say
what'll
don't
happen
get
next?
caught
It's hard to say.
I was going to say, don't get caught up on the whole private equity. Like, look at the true definition of private equity. If Brian and myself and 2 other people sat down and put our money together and said, we're going to go start buying laundromats, that's private equity. Like,
Right.
don't get it confused with the bigger names that we think of from, Wall Street and these areas. Private equity is just private money.
Right. It's all private money for the most part
Yeah.
among our
Like,
members. But we have had some inquiries and some conversations with those big dogs, and
yeah.
it's happened in other industries. We'll all just kind of wait and see what might happen here. Lisa, there is a database of distributors on our website. David's asking about sources for laundromats for sale. There's a great video on our laundromat FAQs about where to find stores for sale. But to your answer question, all the above, brokers, yes. Online listings, yes. Talking to local distributors, yes. Going to local chapter meetings and meetups with other laundromat owners, yes. Knocking on doors with existing stores, yes, yes, yes. Lisa, how many employees are needed? I'd say most stores are staffed with one person during most of the time. If they're doing processing for wash, dry, fold, and commercial, there might be 2 people. Weekends, you might staff up further during your busiest times. Um, is there an analysis template to help with deciding on a deal? I just think there's so many factors. Join the association and book some time on my calendar, and I'm happy
Yep.
to look at that with you. Brandon's asking about kind of a recurring revenue membership model, subscription model. There's some experimentation happening on the delivery side, not so much on the self-service side. Let's see here. Uh, let's see. Uh, I hear one question. I hear Mr. Waleed Cope state that his preference is newer equipment when purchasing an existing store. What are your thoughts on refurbished equipment? Do you want to add any thoughts on used or retooled or refurbished equipment? First of all, you better understand what that means. Different vendors have different definitions of what a
Yep.
refurbished, updated, refreshed, what that really means.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with refurbished machines, depending who the machines are coming from. If I'm getting them from, a reputable source who's done their due diligence, like a distributor and some of these other, well, I don't know what the right term to use for them, but they move used equipment and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
and parts for laundromats. If they have a good reputation, they give me some type of warranty on that piece of refurbished equipment, and more importantly, it operates good and it looks good. I have no problem with refurbished machine. I would put it in. Refurbished just doesn't fit into the framework of the projects that we're working on now. But I had a store with refurbished machines in it. Those machines were 22 years old, and they kicked. They just weren't really efficient.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I made money.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that sort of lifespan of equipment
Hmm.
has a lot to do with it's also a matter of turns, right? So you have the age of a car, but if you drive 10 miles back and forth to work every day, that's one thing. If you're out on the road calling on clients across another state, you're putting, so you're putting 20,000 miles a year on your car or 5,000.
Right.
Same
That's a
thing with
great
equipment.
analogy.
You really got to understand how much use it's getting and how well it's being maintained. Okay. Let's see. Well, again, looking at the clock here, let me kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about some of these other resources. So I mentioned the YouTube channel. You can follow us on the socials. On the YouTube, we've got some FAQs that I put together on some of these questions you shared today. Really important for this group. I didn't want to run out of time here. We do have some great in-person education, talk about a one-day crash course, taking a deeper dive on each of these topics that we've talked about today. So here are some of the upcoming opportunities. What we've been doing with these is doing a kickoff the evening before with a little meetup at a local laundromat with a great operator so you can get in a store, talk to someone who's running the store, open the bulkheads, look behind the dryers, really understand what the business looks like. So here's our next three classes put together. And please take advantage of that. So this is sort of the in-person deep dive version of this monthly webinar that we do. So great opportunity. Waleed mentioned all the Facebook groups and all the opportunities. You saw his Wash Weekly URL earlier. He's got a newsletter that goes out every week that I highly recommend. There's a lot of great resources out there for anyone who really wants to seriously take a look at the business. One of the other things that we do as an association is a number of what we call business solutions, where we look at things that you need that we can vet and use our strength in numbers. That's everything from insurance to utilities to digital marketing. So again, go to our website and learn some more about some of those resources and join up and be part of the industry, be a professional, put your hands on all the information. I like to say spend a few $100s before you spend a few 100,000 and make sure that you've got all the information. As I said earlier, that membership includes a consultation with me. We're always happy to spend time with you. And we have a promo code today. And I know, Waleed, you've been a member going way back. So I hope you would agree that membership is a great investment for these folks, especially now where they're trying to get what I call it, get your bachelor's degree in laundromats.
Yeah. I would say, and I'll say this and be totally transparent. I'm second generation, as I mentioned earlier. And when grew up in the business, my dad and I weren't members of the CLA. And when my dad transitioned out of the business in 2015 and we took it over 100%, we joined the CLA. My membership expired. I did not take advantage of any of the benefits. And then I don't remember what year it was. I renewed my membership and I went to Clean Show and I went to a couple of other CLA events. And I can tell you that it has changed our perception and the trajectory of our business Is it all CLA 100%? Obviously not, but it has played a role in how we think, the people we interact with, the connections we've made, with not just owners and operators, but I'm talking about on the VIN side, distributors, other manufacturers, ancillary equipment for the store. It has opened up a lot of relationships for us. And I'll go on record saying it. I probably wouldn't have 30% to maybe 50% of the relationships that we have in the industry if it wasn't through some connection, through a connection through a CLA event, a webinar, an in-person event, Connect Live, et cetera, et cetera. And listen, I'm not advocating to say go be a CLA member. I'm telling you like it is. I have no time to try and sell someone a bill of goods. And there are enough people selling bill of goods in our industry right now to people, and it makes the hair on my neck stand up. But
Yeah. Well, I think you composed yourself well here, Waleed, given a couple of hot buttons that we pushed along the way. Well, we appreciate that recommendation and that referral. And again, we're here to connect the industry. We're here to help one another be successful. And we've got a promo code as a token of our appreciation for being part of the webinar today. And so, yeah, Waleed, I want to thank you. I know from the chat and from the Q&A, everyone really appreciates your real life experience that you're willing to share, helping people based on what you've learned. Great information. So I appreciate you being our guest today. Can't thank you enough. I'll have hopefully a chance to thank you in person before too long. And really, for everyone that joined us, thank you for taking the time to learn more about our business. We're here to help. You're not the first one to go through this. There are resources. So please take advantage of that. We wish you the best of luck and success in your search. And more importantly, let us know how we can help you. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Waleed.